The galaxy had been burning for years. Two alien kingdoms, locked in a civil war so fierce that even the stars seemed afraid to shine. Every peace meeting failed until one day. The War Council doors opened, and a single human walked in. He said nothing at first, just placed a small, ancient object on the table. The aliens froze. They knew this relic. It was supposed to be lost forever, and it carried a secret that could end the war in a single moment. But before he could speak, a shadow in the corner moved. A hand reached for a weapon, and in that second, the fate of two worlds hung by a thread. The galaxy had been in darkness. For many years, two powerful alien kingdoms were locked in a civil war that no one could stop. Entire planets had taken sides. Even trade routes were empty because no ship was safe to travel. The kings of both kingdoms had tried to meet before, but every meeting ended with arguments and anger. Now, the Grand War Council was called once again. Leaders from both sides sat around a long table inside a tall hall of crystal walls. The air was heavy with distrust. No one believed peace was possible anymore. Then, the great doors opened. A single human walked in. His name was Captain Elias Kane. No one had seen him before. He was tall, calm, and his eyes were steady. The alien guards looked at each other. Some whispered in confusion. A human? Why is a human here? Elias did not speak. He slowly walked to the center of the table. The alien generals stared at him with curiosity and doubt. One of them laughed softly. Has the galaxy run out of diplomats? They send a human to solve our war. Elias didn't answer. Instead, he placed a small, ancient object on the table. It was round, made of shining metal, with strange markings that glowed faintly. The moment it touched the table, the room grew silent. Every alien. I locked on it. An elder among them leaned forward. Impossible. That relic was lost hundreds of years ago. The object was more than just an old artifact. It carried a story. A story from a time when both kingdoms were not enemies, but one people under a single ruler. It was proof that their history was shared, that their roots were the same. Elias finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. This belongs to both your worlds. It holds the truth you've forgotten. The alien king of the East leaned back, eyes narrowing. And why? Would a human carry such a thing? Because, Elias replied, I found it on a forgotten world, one your maps no longer show. And it's the key to ending this war. A soft murmur spread across the room. Some council members leaned closer, intrigued. Others crossed their arms, unwilling to trust him. The princess of the Western Kingdom, Lyra, tilted her head as she studied him. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the hall. If this is true, then everything we have fought for is built on a lie. Before Elias could answer, movement stirred in the shadows of the council chamber. One of the attendants, standing far at the edge of the hall, shifted his hand under his robe. His eyes darted toward the relic. Elias noticed, but so did one of the king's guards. The guard's step echoed in the silent room as he moved closer, his gaze fixed on the man in the shadows. The air was tense now. Everyone's attention moved between the relic and the figure standing near the wall. The king of the West broke the silence. Human, if this relic is real, then prove it. Show us that it is not just a clever trick. Elias nodded. I can. But it requires a journey to the world where it was made. The Eastern king frowned. That planet is a myth. No one has been there in centuries. Because no one has the map, Elias said. I do. Princess Lyra's eyes brightened slightly, though she hid it behind a calm expression. If this relic truly holds the key to peace, then we must see it with our own eyes. The council began to whisper among themselves. Some voices were hopeful, others were full of doubt. It was rare for any outsider to be trusted with such a task, especially a human. As the discussion grew louder, Elias stood silently, waiting. He knew trust was fragile here. One wrong word could break the chance for peace. He could almost feel the weight of the relic in front of him, not just in his hands, but in the air around them all. Then, a deep voice cut through the noise. It was the Eastern king. Very well, human. You will take a small group and travel to this so-called origin world. If your story is true, the war will end. If not, then you will never stand in this hall again." Elias gave a small nod. "Agreed." Princess Lyra stepped forward. "I will join the human, if there is truth here. I want to see it myself." The council chamber grew even quieter. No one had expected the princess to offer herself for such a mission. The kings exchanged long looks, then both gave a single nod. Elias glanced at Lyra. Their eyes met for a brief moment, an unspoken understanding that this journey would not be easy. The relic between them seemed to glow a little brighter, as if it, too, knew the road ahead was full of challenges. But somewhere deep in his mind, Elias felt something else. Someone in this hall did not want peace. Someone would try to stop them before they could take even the first step toward the truth. And as the council dismissed for the day, that same shadowy figure from before slipped out quietly. A faint glint of hidden intent in his eyes. Elias stood quietly at the edge of the docking platform, the cool air of the early morning brushing against his face. Around him, the city was waking up. Tall crystal towers shimmered under the rising light, and the soft hum of distant engines carried through the stillness. It almost felt peaceful, but he knew it was only the calm before a long and uncertain journey. The relic rested inside a secure case, its faint glow visible through the clear cover. Elias had not taken his eyes off it since the council meeting. He understood its importance not only as a piece of history, but as the single thread that could weave two broken kingdoms back into one. Somewhere deep down, he also knew that if it fell into the wrong hands, the chance for peace would vanish forever. Princess Lyra arrived with quiet steps. She was dressed for travel, her long silver cloak shifting softly in the breeze. "You seem lost in thought," she said, her voice calm but curious. "I'm thinking about what waits for us," Elias replied. "The relic holds the truth, but truth can be dangerous when some would rather it never be found." Lyra gave a faint smile, though her eyes stayed serious. "We will protect it, and if it is truly what you claim, then I will stand beside you when the truth is revealed." Their small crew began to gather. An old navigator from the Western Kingdom, a silent engineer from the eastern side, and two young aides who seemed more nervous than ready. Elias noticed the way they avoided looking at each other, still carrying the quiet weight of mistrust between their worlds. As they boarded the starship, Elias glanced at the city one last time. He wondered if they would return with good news or if the war would still be waiting for them. The ship's engines came to life, a low vibration under their feet. They lifted into the air, leaving the city's shining towers behind. Through the viewport, the planet's curve appeared, its blue and gold surface giving way to the endless dark of space. Lyra stepped beside Elias, pointing toward a cluster of distant stars. "That is where the old maps say the world should be. Beyond the trade lanes, past the drifting ice fields. It's far," Elias said softly, "and hidden for a reason." The journey began smoothly. The crew worked in silence, checking navigation systems and scanning for hazards. But Elias noticed something strange. The engineer from the eastern side kept glancing at the relic's case. When he thought no one was looking, it wasn't the look of curiosity, it was the look of someone measuring, waiting, deciding. Hours later, they passed into the ice fields. Shards of frozen rock drifted in slow motion, glittering like stars caught in place. The navigator guided them carefully, weaving between massive formations. Lyra stood near the front, her gaze fixed on the shifting paths ahead. Then, without warning, a faint signal appeared on their scanners. It was weak, but steady, following their course. Elias leaned closer to the controls. "We're not alone." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Lyra stepped beside him. "Could it be a patrol?" "Not from either kingdom," Elias said, "and they're keeping just far enough not to be seen. Unless they wanted to be." The navigator frowned. "Whoever it is, they know where we're going." The ship pressed forward, and the signal followed, never getting closer, never falling behind. Hours passed like this, the quiet tension wrapping around everyone. Elias could almost feel the weight of unseen eyes watching from the dark. Finally, the ice field opened, revealing a stretch of empty space. In the distance, a faint golden shimmer marked the beginning of a nebula. Somewhere beyond it, their destination waited, but before they could set their course, The engineer from the eastern side stood up slowly. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "We should turn back. This path is dangerous. The relic is safer in the capital." Elias studied him for a moment. "And in whose hands would it be safest?" The engineer's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered just slightly. Lyra stepped forward, her tone quiet but sharp. "If you have something to say, say it now." The man lowered his gaze, only that some truths are better left buried. No one spoke after that. The engines hummed as they entered the nebulas. Glowing mist, light curling around the hull like liquid gold. Elias stayed near the relic, his mind clear on one thing: someone on this ship was not on their side. And before they reached the lost world, that someone would act. Asterisk. The golden mist of the nebula curled around the ship like slow-moving clouds, soft and endless. Light from distant stars shimmered through it in faint colors, painting the inside of the cabin with shifting shades. The crew moved carefully, speaking in low voices, as if the vast quiet outside demanded the same stillness within. Elias stood near the main controls, eyes on the navigation screen. The path ahead twisted like a hidden river, narrow and uncertain. The readings showed pockets of strange energy fields that could confuse their systems. "We'll need to move slowly," he said, his voice steady. This place was meant to keep visitors away. Princess Lyra joined him, her gaze sweeping the glowing clouds. "I've read about the nebula," she murmured. "Old stories say it hides things, ships, cities, even worlds that no one has seen for centuries." The navigator adjusted the controls with careful precision. "If those stories are true, then your world is hiding somewhere in here, human." Elias didn't answer. He was listening not to the voices, but to the quiet tension in the air. Since leaving the ice fields, the faint tracking signal had vanished. But he didn't believe they were alone. Somewhere, in the folds of the nebula, another presence moved unseen. The ship glided deeper into the glowing mist. At times, shapes seemed to form in the haze-faint outlines of enormous structures that vanished when they drew closer. Once, they passed a dark mass that might have been an abandoned station, its lights long gone. Drifting like a forgotten dream, Lyra's voice was soft but full of thought. "It's strange, my people and the Eastern Kingdom fought for so long. And yet this place, it belongs to both of us. It's part of our shared history." Elias glanced at her. History is often forgotten when it's easier to fight than to remember. For a while, there was only the gentle hum of the engines. Then, the navigator spoke again, a note of surprise in his tone. "Captain, I'm picking up something. A signal, very old. It's weak, but it's ahead of us." Elias leaned over the screen. The signal was faint, but repeating like a beacon that had been calling for hundreds of years. "That could be our path." They followed the signal, weaving through more pockets of glowing mist. Slowly, a dark shape began to form ahead of planet, small and covered in soft gold light from the nebula. Its surface shimmered faintly, as if the atmosphere itself remembered the old days. As they descended, the landscape unfolded below them: ruins of tall stone towers, wide circular plazas, and long lines of empty streets. The structures seemed untouched by time, yet there was no movement, no sound. The ship landed in the center of a plaza marked with a symbol that matched the relic. The crew stepped out, their footsteps soft against the pale stone ground. Lyra looked around with quiet. This was real, all of it. Elias held the relic in his hands. It seemed to pulse faintly, almost like it could feel they were home. "Somewhere here is the proof we need, something that will show the council that both kingdoms were one." They moved through the ruins together, the golden light following them like a gentle tide. Inside what seemed to be the main hall, they found walls covered with carvings to symbols side by side. The emblems of both kingdoms joined together. In the center of the hall stood a tall stone pedestal. Resting on it was a small device, still glowing softly after centuries. Elias touched it carefully, and it came to life, projecting a shimmering figure above them, a ruler from ages past, speaking in a voice that carried both power and kindness. The figure's words were in an ancient tongue, but Lyra's translator caught the meaning. "We are one people. Our strength is in unity. May those who find this remember who they are." The message repeated, filling the hall with a quiet sense of truth. Lyra looked at Elias, her voice steady but full of emotion. "This will change everything." Before he could answer, a faint sound echoed through the ruins, a soft step, not from their group. Elias turned slowly. Somewhere among the broken archways, someone was watching them, and whoever it was, they had followed them here. The golden light inside the ancient hall seemed softer now, as if the place itself was listening. The glowing figure above the pedestal repeated its message again, the voice calm and steady. Speaking across centuries, the crew stood in silence, each one feeling the weight of what they had just heard. Elias kept his eyes on the shadows near the doorway. Something about the faint sound he had heard moments ago stayed in his mind. The crew had entered together, he was sure of that, but now there was a presence here that didn't belong. Princess Lyra stepped closer to the pedestal, her fingers brushing the carvings on its base. "It's real," she whispered. "No one can deny this. Some will try," Elias said quietly. "Truth can be uncomfortable for those who have built their power on lies." The old navigator moved toward the side wall, tracing the joined symbols carved into the stone. "These halls must have been filled with both our people once," he said softly. "No borders, no war." Before Elias could respond, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Someone stepped from behind a broken column, tall, cloaked, and carrying a small case in his hand. The hooded figure moved with slow, careful steps toward the pedestal. It was the engineer from the eastern side, his face hidden in shadow. He didn't look at Elias or Lyra. Instead, his gaze was fixed on the relic and the glowing device. "What are you doing?" Elias asked, his tone even but firm. The man hesitated only for a moment. "Keeping the balance," he said quietly. "If this truth reaches the council, the balance will shatter. Old wounds will not heal, they will open wider." "That's not for you to decide," Lyra said. Stepping in front of the pedestal, her eyes met his, calm but unwavering. "This belongs to both kingdoms." The engineer's grip on the small case tightened. "This belongs nowhere, if no one knows. The fighting will continue, but at least both sides will remain strong. Peace will make them weak." Elias took a slow step forward. "Strength isn't in fighting forever. It's in knowing when to stop." For a moment, no one moved. The air was still, heavy with the unspoken choice that hung between them. Then the engineer's eyes shifted not toward Elias or Lyra, but toward the relic on the pedestal. In that heartbeat, Elias understood his intent. The man turned sharply and moved toward the device, his hand reaching out. Elias crossed the space between them into quick steps and caught his arm. Steady but firm, the relic wobbled slightly on the pedestal, and Lyra caught it before it could fall. The engineer froze, his gaze meeting Elias's. There was no anger there, only a deep, stubborn belief that he was right. But Elias didn't let go. He held the man's arm until the tension in it slowly faded, and the case slipped from his grasp. Lyra placed the relic back onto the pedestal, where it glowed softly as if nothing had happened. "We're taking this and the recording to the council," she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. The engineer said nothing, only stepping back into the shadows. The silence in the hall felt heavier now, the air charged with something unseen. Elias glanced toward the doorway, his mind already turning to the journey ahead. Whoever had been tracking them through the nebula could still be out there. And if the engineer wasn't the only one who feared the truth, their return might be even harder than the path that had brought them here. The crew left the hall together, the relic secured once more. The planet's golden light followed them back to the ship, its calm beauty hiding the quiet reality that the fight to end the war had only just begun. The air around them felt heavy, not because of danger, but because of everything left unsaid. The two of them walked side by side, yet each step carried a quiet weight. The alien girl kept glancing at him, as if trying to speak, but stopping herself every time. Her eyes, once guarded and sharp, now held something softer, almost hesitant. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged, like the air before a gentle rain. He noticed her fingers brushing against the edge of the small pouch she always carried. She seemed restless, almost nervous. That was unusual. She had always been the one in control, confident in her own world. But now here she was, matching her pace with his, waiting for the right moment to say something. He didn't ask. He knew her well enough to understand that sometimes you had to let her speak on her own terms. They reached a clearing bathed in faint, silver light from the twin moons overhead. She stopped and finally turned toward him, her voice soft, almost unsure. "Do you ever think about her staying?" The question caught him off guard. She wasn't talking about resting for the night. Her tone carried more weight than that. Her eyes searched his, as if afraid he might misunderstand. He didn't answer right away, letting the night sounds fill the space between them. A faint breeze stirred her hair, and for a moment, she looked almost fragile, like someone caught between two worlds. He realized then that this wasn't just about her safety, or the journey they were on. This was about belonging, about trust, about the quiet bond that had formed when neither of them was looking. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but steady. "If I stayed, it wouldn't be because I had nowhere else to go. It would be because this is where I'd choose to be." Something shifted in her expression, relief mixed with something deeper. She didn't smile right away, but the way her shoulders eased told him his answer mattered more than he could imagine. They stood there a while longer, not speaking, but the silence now felt different, warmer, almost like a promise. The journey wasn't over, but in that moment, they both knew something had quietly changed between them. The human stood at the edge of the alien courtyard, the soft glow of distant moons bathing the strange palace walls in silver light. The air was still, yet heavy with an unspoken tension, as if the stars themselves were waiting for the next move. She approached quietly, her long cloak trailing over the stone path, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. He had seen her in moments of command, in times when her voice shook the halls and her presence alone silenced all arguments. But tonight, there was no crown on her head, no guards at her side, only the woman behind the title, the one who had crossed galaxies and risked everything to return. Her steps slowed as she reached him, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The sound of a gentle breeze through the palace gardens was the only thing between them. He could see the faint shimmer in her eyes, like a storm held back for far too long. "You stayed," she finally whispered, as if she still couldn't believe it. His lips curved in a small, almost tired smile. "I told you I would. Some promises aren't meant to be broken." Her fingers brushed against his hand, hesitant at first, then more certain, as if afraid he might vanish the moment she blinked. The connection sent a rush of warmth through him, grounding him in a place that was far from home, yet felt inexplicably right. She didn't speak of the throne, of the battles won, or the challenges ahead. Instead, she asked about him, his world, his people, the little things no one else seemed to care about. The longer they talked, the more the weight on her shoulders seemed to lift. She laughed softly at his stories, her voice carrying into the quiet night, and he realized that this was the side of her no one else was allowed to see. When she looked at him again, it wasn't with the eyes of a ruler, but of someone who had found an anchor in a universe that often felt like it was drifting apart. In that moment, he understood something. Her return was never just about duty or politics. It was about a choice, and she had chosen to come back to him, no matter how many stars lay between them.